Death is also a beginning, part 2. Hi, I'm Reverend Andrew Bozeman, and this is On the Wings of Your Mind. And today, we're continuing our talk. Death is also a beginning. Now, yesterday, I bid farewell to my son Andy, who died earlier this month. And then I began a discussion declaring that death is not an ending, but a beginning. So today, we're continuing that discussion. The indigenous people of the world and the spiritual teachings of so-called third world countries support the idea that there is life after death. And they actually honor death as part of their lives. Unfortunately for us, as so-called civilized society, we tend to look down on these people as primitive and uneducated. I say it's unfortunate for us because our facade of education and sophistication has succeeded in separating us from our spiritual core. So we often find ourselves standing on the shifting sands of human opinion, which is fickle and highly susceptible to the winds of change. In indigenous societies, there's a respect for the dead and for the idea of conferring with the dead. Conferring, talking with the dead for guidance in stressful situations. It's a standard practice. On the other hand, in the so-called developed countries of the West, we reject such ideas. We have generally quashed the belief that there is life after death because science doesn't support it. As a result, we are lost in the darkness of worshiping technology, and the technocrats seem to have a primary goal of disrupting and destroying the consciousness of humanity and replacing us with robots. Fortunately, there are now a number of people in the scientific world who see things differently. They do not reject such possibilities as life after death. Their curiosity has driven them to begin asking questions and collecting data to see what's the real story behind the possibility that death is not the end, but a new beginning. Please, click on the thumbs up button below, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Remember, I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, your suggestions, or whatever. So please use the chat box. Now, if you're watching this live on YouTube, the chat box is on the right side of the screen. If you're viewing this live on Facebook Live, then you have to look around for the comments prompt, because it can be on the left, or it can be on the right, or it can be underneath the video, depending on what screen you're in. It's there, just that Facebook doesn't have a standard place of putting it. They put it wherever they feel like putting it. So, thumb up, subscribe, give me your opinion, give me your thoughts, give me your suggestions. So yesterday we talked about the near-death experiences. We talked about mediums and seances. And I revealed that I'm a member of a spiritualist church in Western New York, and that I shared a couple of the declarations from our Declaration of Principles. The Declaration of Principles from the National Spiritualist Association of Churches. Principle number 4 states, "We affirm that the existence and personal identity of the individual continues after the change called death." This is followed by principle number 5, "We affirm that communication with the so-called dead is a fact, scientifically proven by the phenomena of spiritualism." So, the continuation of life after death is a real thing, even if our culture and society reject the concept. Our society is harsh when it comes to people who do believe in that possibility. They're often shamed out of it, or forced to hide their belief and deny that they even considered such a ridiculous possibility. And so to those of you who have suffered such abuse from our society, please accept my assurance that you are not wrong. Those who criticize you are mistaken. and it is their loss, not yours. So today we're going to talk about something even more scandalous than life after death. We're going to talk about reincarnation. Now, reincarnation is also known as rebirth and is defined as the philosophical or religious belief that the non-physical essence of a living being can begin a new life in a different physical form or body after biological death. Reincarnation simply is a belief that exists and is supported in Eastern cultures all over the world, Eastern religions all over the world. So in those countries, when somebody claims to be a reincarnation, they're not ridiculed or rejected. No, they're accepted. It's investigated. Well, since you're reincarnated, let's see where you came from. In fact, the current Dalai Lama of Tibet, world famous Dalai Lama of Tibet, is considered to be the 14th reincarnation of Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. Now, in order to be bestowed with that title, he had to pass a battery of tests designed to verify that he was actually the reincarnation of the previous Dalai Lama. It had to be vigorously tested. And this tradition has spanned more than 1,000 years. So if we look back in history, reincarnation was not scorned. Reincarnation was accepted and believed for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. It was actually a belief in early Christianity. There's a hint of it in the Bible, in the book of Matthew, chapter 17, verses 10 through 13. And his disciples asked him, saying, "Why then do the scribes say that Elijah must come first?" Jesus answered and said to them, "Indeed, Elijah is coming first and restore all things. But I say to you that Elijah has come already, and they did not know him, but did to him whatever they wished. Likewise, the Son of Man is also about to suffer at their hands." Then the disciples understood that he spoke to them of John the Baptist. So John the Baptist was a reincarnation of Elijah. So references to reincarnation were actually a larger part of the early Bible. There were many more references to reincarnation before it was revised in the year 325 at the Conference of Nicaea. The strongest promoter of reincarnation was Origen of Alexandria. He was one of Christianity's earliest theologians, and at one time, Origen was proclaimed the greatest genius the early church has ever produced. The greatest genius the church has ever produced. Unfortunately, he didn't have the right backing. It turns out that the case against reincarnation was actually a political move by the Emperor Constantine of Rome. When he made Christianity the official religion of Rome, he felt that the people would be easier to control if they thought they had only one life. So he banned reincarnation as a concept. So almost all references to reincarnation were removed from the Bible. That's not all. About a century and a half later, the Emperor Justinian the Great of Rome took an even more drastic step. He ordered that all references to reincarnation be burned. Burned. And then the great genius Origen was declared a heretic, and all of his works were condemned and banned. They did not want anything to do with reincarnation, and they squashed it and stepped on it and squashed it and stepped on it and burned it. That's how much they wanted it out. That's how much they wanted to deny the truth. But despite all that, reincarnation didn't go away. It just went underground. So today in so-called polite circles, any talk of past lives has become a joke. In the movies, People who talk of past lives are usually ditzy female characters. You know, did I know you in a past life? What's your sign? You know, no one takes them seriously. But the subject comes up. See, even though it's ridiculed, it always comes up. Past lives, reincarnation, it always comes up. Think about that. You know, the actress Shirley MacLaine has spoken often of past lives, even though some of people in Hollywood try to dismiss her because of her talk of past lives. But she hangs on. She's a tough lady. And she said in her latest book, it says, I'm over all that. That's the title. She says, I mean, each of us has had multiple experiences in past lifetimes that equip our souls with memories and intuitions that cannot be explained any other way. How did I know and recognize streets and temples when I first went to India? Why did I find myself speaking Portuguese when I was in Brazil? Each human being can point to any number of similar experiences, specific moments that make them wonder why and how did they know what they know. I believe that when you actually think about it, without the prejudices of society, reincarnation makes sense. After all, the purpose of reincarnation, according to most religions, is to give the soul the opportunity to grow through many experiences towards spiritual perfection, with the goal of eventually rising above the repeated rebirths to a point where they are free and achieve a level of a higher spirit. There's a goal there. There's a process. There's somewhere we're going. That's why reincarnation makes sense. Doing it over and over again until you get it right. It makes more sense than having just one physical life and only one chance to attain a level of spiritual acceptance by God. It makes a lot more sense. You know, I've had the profound experience of exploring my past lives, both through past life regression sessions and also spontaneous remembrances of past life. I can remember being often curious as to why I was so drawn to spiritual life as a minister. Why did I want to become a minister? But I later discovered that this was not my first life as a minister. I have experienced life as a priest or a minister or a priest or a minister several times, over and over. At one time during an intense meditative vision, I experienced being an itinerant minister in Kansas. I remember driving a one-horse wagon across the plains from church to church where I would give my sermons. And during that regression, I experienced the dust of those trips and the rough ride of the horse of the wagon without shock absorbers. I remember the people who came to hear me deliver my sermons on my travels. I remembered that. It was very clear, intensely clear. Another spontaneous memory that I had came to me during another intense meditation exercise while I was a student in Amron Mystery School. In that regression, I was standing in a moving wagon and I was tied up. I was wearing the robes of a monk, and the people were shouting angry words at me. I was on my way to being burned at the stake because I was a Druid priest. Now, interestingly, that experience sparked a memory in from my childhood, because when I was 9 years old, I was being admitted to the hospital to have my tonsils removed. They used to do that back in those days, back in the 50s. But when the admitting clerk asked my mother what my religion was, I spontaneously replied, don't know where it came from, but I replied, I'm a Druid. I'm a Druid. I thought that was strange because I had no idea who or what a Druid was until many years later. It also helped explain to me why I've always been most comfortable wearing robes and caftans. I really like it. So as I mentioned yesterday, Netflix has a documentary series called Surviving Death. And in one of those episodes is dedicated to reincarnation. And it tells the story of three boys who in their early years remembered being someone else. Of course, their fathers thought they were just imagining things, but their mothers, thank God for mothers, their mothers eventually began investigating those memories. And because as mothers they were concerned about their sons, so they followed up on it. And fortunately, they eventually learned of the work of Dr. Jim B. Tucker, a child psychiatrist and a Barnard-Lowry professor of psychiatry and neurobehavioral sciences at the University of Virginia School of Medicine. Dr. Tucker has dedicated his research to documenting stories of children who claim to remember previous lives. He's written a few books on the subject, including a book entitled Return to Life, and another one called Life Before Life, a scientific investigation of children's memories of previous lives. One of the things that struck me most in the documentary was the detail to which these boys remembered their past lives. Lots of details, verifiable details. It's kind of mind-boggling. You know, I remember meeting a woman in California who was a strong believer in reincarnation, that she had spent a life in a town in France. Now, this is a very strong, independent woman. She was a licensed helicopter pilot, and at that time, getting a license to fly a helicopter was tough. It was totally dominated by men, and they didn't want women doing it, but she did it anyway. Anyway, she told me that when her helicopter license, she treated herself by taking a trip to France. And when she got to France, she was drawn to this specific little town in southern France. So she went to visit that town, and as she walked around, she recognized it. She recognized the streets. She recognized the buildings as if she'd grown up there. She'd been there before. She said the memories coming in were so strong that it made her knees weak. So she knows without a doubt that she is from France, somewhere back there in her previous lives. So yesterday, I asked the question, is life after death a real thing? Is it really real? My answer was a strong yes. Life after death is real. Many people believe that our consciousness is a creation of the brain. But hey, that ain't the truth. There's a school of theoretical physics that now holds the position that the basic state of everything is consciousness. That everything that exists, absolutely everything, comes out of consciousness. So in that paradigm, consciousness exists outside of the body, outside of the brain. That's why I continually repeat to you over and over that you are an individualized expression of infinite intelligence. In that context, you cannot disappear after your body dies because infinite intelligence never ends. Consciousness never ends. The theory of reincarnation tells us that consciousness not only continues to live on, but has time and time and time again settled into new bodies and lived new lives to continue its journey to spiritual perfection. There's also belief that part of reincarnation, the people who are close to you and influence you in your life, have been with you through multiple lifetimes in different roles. So, for instance, your mother may have been your brother in a different lifetime, or your mother may have been your best friend in a previous lifetime. People who are important to us are attached to us spiritually as we move from life to life. So basically, as I look around the world today, I see an energetic searching for the answers about what happens on the other side of that barrier that we call death. I think it's rather exciting because the answers they're coming up with are quite encouraging, at least for me. Yes, there is life after death. There is reincarnation. There are past lives. Of course, we don't have irrefutable, unshakable, concrete evidence, but maybe one day we will. I believe that infinite intelligence is opening these doors for us now because it is time for us to rise in consciousness. It is time so that we can take on the mantle of who and what we really are. We are the divine children of God. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. And we have a job to do. It is up to us to change the world. Not by going out and persuading others to change their ways. No. As spiritual warriors, we will change the world by our very presence. Just because we are. As we open our hearts and we open our minds and our bodies to become channels of the light of infinite intelligence. And infinite intelligence will come through us and take care of the rest. Infinite intelligence will bring about the change. We are merely the channels. We are the channels of change. Let's close with prayer. Thank you, infinite intelligence, for bringing all of us together in this life so that we may become spiritual warriors and join in the work we have come here to do. Thank you, infinite intelligence, for bringing us into this space of awareness and a deeper understanding of ourselves and our relationship to life and infinite intelligence. Thank you for showing us who we really are. We open our minds and hearts to the truth of our being. We are the children of God. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. And because we are part of the greater whole, we're beginning to understand our value to the continuity of life on this planet. And as we become channels of your power, infinite intelligence, we can feel your presence within ourselves and within our lives more and more. We know that as we feel your presence within our lives every day, we will rise because we are no longer cut off from you by being immersed in the darkness of fear, anger, and the pain of unforgiveness. So we are now restoring our connection through the grace of forgiveness, knowing that as we learn to forgive ourselves for the pain we have caused to ourselves, and as we learn to forgive those who have inflicted pain upon us, our connections will grow stronger, and our lives will grow happier and healthier and more prosperous. And for this, we are truly grateful. As above, so below. As within, so without. And so it is. Amen. Please click on the thumbs up button below, and if you haven't already done so, please choose to subscribe to my broadcast. Remember, I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, your suggestions, whatever. So please use the comment section below the video. Thank you for watching. Thank you. I am Reverend Andrew Bozeman, and this has been On the Wings of Your Mind.